Elaine Marino, who's just finished DaVinci Coders, Jim Denton, who's an apprentice at Groupon, and Tom Fry, who you heard earlier talk about DaVinci Coders. So we're going to let these guys give a little bit of their background of who they are, what they've done, and kind of, yeah, we'll start with that. Yeah, let's grab the mic.
Hi, my name is Matt Yoho. I've been working with working for Jumpstart Lab as an instructor for Living Social's HungryAcademy, which was an internal program, a 5-month program designed to train up people and hopefully get them into the engineering teams there. Prior to that, I worked for smaller Ruby and Rails consultancies, such as EdgeCase, and I was involved with Apprenticeship there.
Hi, my name is Elaine Marino. I just finished the DaVinci Coders class. It's an 11-week intensive course so that you learn Ruby and Ruby on Rails and some other stuff along the way. My previous experience was nothing. I like to say I knew less than nothing about programming. My background's in marketing. I was an account director in advertising, if that means anything to anyone. And then about 2 years ago, I moved to Boulder, got into the startup scene, and was working in marketing, and it became very clear that to really be ahead in technology is to understand it. And so I gave that up and decided to become a coder. And so I finished the course, and now I'm looking for my first apprenticeship.
Hi, I'm Jim Denton. I started learning Ruby and web development in January. Prior to that, I was a technical director for a nonprofit theater company in Denver. And in late March, I started my apprenticeship with Groupon. And I've been doing that ever since, and I'm close to wrapping that up. So.
Hi, I'm Tom Fry, and I run the DaVinci Institute in Louisville. We started that back in 1997. My background coming into that is I spent 15 years at IBM. And at one point in my career at IBM, they were retraining engineers as programmers. And so they gave us all an aptitude test, which was a heavy math-based aptitude test. And then I was then retrained as a Pascal programmer. Got to work on programming mainframe computers. So having that in my background, the DaVinci Institute has been providing education. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we do a lot of educating. And I heard middle of last year about CodeAcademy in Chicago. And my son Darby, who happens to work for Groupon, was working as a mentor for CodeAcademy, and so we decided to put together a program very similar to what they're doing. And so it's an 11-week full immersion program. And so the first class started on June 4th and finished up at the end of August. And Elaine is a perfect example, somebody who, information by fire hose, and it's quite an interesting experience going through this.
So it's interesting to hear we have kind of two types of education represented here. Well, three if you include myself. So I have a master's in computer science. I got a bachelor's in chemical engineering and was working for an engineering firm that was doing a lot of computer-based research. And I was like, oh, these computer things are kind of cool. And I had Commodore 64 when I was a kid. So I got into that and started doing computer programming and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I should probably go back to school and get a master's degree in this, because I didn't want other BS. I already have one of those. So I went back to get my master's degree in software engineering at DePaul in Chicago, all at night. So I did that. Then we have, HungryAcademy, which is a 5-month program funded by Living Social, if I understand correctly, where the people were selected. How many applicants do they have? So about 650 people applied for 24 spots. There were 650 videos to watch, kind of interesting, but they were paid by Living Social. So they were actually Living Social employees that were paid and had benefits. And then we have the DaVinci Coders, Dev Boot Camp, General Assembly, CodeAcademy, now called the Startup League, I think the Starter League, which we have 11-week programs that people pay to get into. And then we have the traditional computer science thing. So Matt, can you give us a little bit, just how are the Hungry Academy people doing? So, you know, was it 8 people with computer science background, 16 without, kind of, you actually can give us the numbers.
Sure. So just I would say that in general, I regard the program as a success. It's very successful. It was about that so there were 24 students, again, there were 650 applicants, ballpark. 130 were actually brought in to interview and ultimately went with 24. And of those 24, they are all actually now working for Living Social and the engineering teams, which is great, and it was incredibly fulfilling result. But I've gotten a little bit of sort of natural pushback about that, like, oh, well, you took all 24. I guess doesn't that mean the curve was too high, right? Like you must not have been hard enough. And I can only assert very certainly that was not the case. That it was a real struggle, and it was by no means a foregone conclusion that they were all going to have positions.
They were working long hours. Yeah, it wasn't like a 9 to 5 kind of thing for these people.
Absolutely not. I mean, we're talking like 16-hour, 18-hour days, even at stretches. People sleeping in the office. It was almost absurdly over the top, to be honest. It was incredible effort, continuous, and I think the only thing that made that, it was known that was for a finite duration of time, but yeah, very, very much a difficult experience.
Cool. So we have that kind of the 5-month program. We now have the 11-week program. So Elaine just finished an 11-week program. What was your experience like? How did you feel going into that? How did you feel coming out of that? How did you feel during that whole process?
Okay, well, it was, I'll just describe it a little bit. It was 10 hours of class time, so it was 3.5 hours Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which initially sounded like you could still have a part-time job or even a full-time job, which was not really possible. There were a few people who worked and took this class, and it was really overwhelming for them, as it was just for us that were not working at the time, because even though it was quote-unquote only 10 hours of classroom instruction, we would spend all afternoon and all day Tuesday and all day Thursday working on projects, working on homework, and just trying to understand, especially because for the vast majority of us, computer science, software development is entirely new, so the learning curve is steep, and you as software developers don't even know what you know. A string means something different to you than it does to everybody else.
It's not a sequence of characters in the real world.
Like 2 or 3 days in, I'm like, what the hell is a string? Is anyone going to actually say what it is? So that's my point, is that you don't even know what you know until you try to teach someone the very, very basics. As far as the whole course went, it was awesome, it was amazing, it was extremely intense. Every day we would learn a new concept, and we would actually never really review again. So you have to think it's like, here's Ruby, and here's JavaScript, and here's Postgres, and here's jQuery. And so each class day for 11 weeks was something that intense. So you have to think, I think at the end we learned like 28 different things, and they're completely and totally new to us.
11 weeks, 28 new technologies. It's crazy. So apprenticeship programs. So you had no formal Ruby or Rails training, not even 11 weeks of training when you started at Groupon, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So what does that look like?
It was interesting, especially in the first couple of months. Actually, to prereq that, I did do some online tutorials in January and February before I met Corey at Hack Night, relationships. So Groupon's apprenticeship came actually from Optiva. Groupon inherited it in the merger. And I was actually the first apprentice out here in Denver, and we have a remote team out here, and it's only 5 people. So the structure kind of looked, the highest level was the milestones. And at the milestone, it happened every 2 months. I had to do a tech talk, and there was a code review, and this was over about an hour and a half with my peers. And after the talk and everything, they decided whether or not to continue the apprenticeship, hire me, or discontinue the apprenticeship.
So at that point, you could have gone into that code review and they could have said, you know, here's the door.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
See you later. The idea around that is to give the apprenticeship kind of a deadline, apprentice a deadline, but also to allow them to put their best foot forward, knowing that they have a deadline, and then kind of see what they're made of, is the way I looked at it. And my last one is actually in October. But anyway, so the structure from there was actually kind of a 9-to-5 structure, because my remote team was mainly on from 9 to 5, literally, online. And I worked 3 days a week remote, and 2 days a week I would meet up with part of the crew at a workspace, where we would do, like, you know, physically in the room pairing, and when I did it remote, we would do, of course, remote pairing. And, you know, there was that structure, and then I spent a lot of time of my free time reading and doing as much as I could in, around my time with them, which all comes together in my thesis project, my Breakable Toy. That is an app that I've done full stack, a Sinatra app, that I'm actually starting to release to a select user group and get a feedback loop going, and it's my first app, and yeah. So because I'm nearing the end of my apprenticeship.
So your apprenticeship program had kind of, here is the landmarks that you had to hit. So there was some sort of like success criteria built into that.
Yeah. And it changed. The target changed too, because other apprentices might have had 10 years of experience or in different languages or whatever, and I had very little. So my first milestone was very different than somebody else's.
Oh, so it was custom to the apprentice.
Yeah, and then the next milestone after that was, okay, well, what have you built on top of that? And then this next one is, are you ready to be a developer at Groupon?
Yeah, awesome. So success criteria sounds like it's important. So you know as an apprentice kind of where you are along the path.
Yeah, it's a roadmap. And it's been really important to my, how I manage my goals. I mean, coming from a theater background, I had a lot of that project management already built into my brain, but I needed to translate it into programming.
Yeah.
And that particular deadline has been extremely helpful.
So Tom, you mentioned that the DaVinci Coders was patterned after CodeAcademy. Did that program as well have kind of milestones along the path for the students, or what were you guys using as success criteria? I know you guys are running another program coming up, and how is that going to build on the one that just finished?
Yeah, the first one we were testing out a lot of new things to see how it all would work. I did interviews with all the students after the class, and then we did some group discussions during the class, and a lot of informal conversations along the way. So we're trying to, kind of gauge success, and then we're talking to the instructor, Peter, along the way. And so some of the things we felt worked well, and for Peter, he kept having to rethink the curriculum probably 100 times a week as he's going along. The first time through, it's always rough.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at this as how can we do as much as we can possibly do in that amount of time, and then is it enough for a handoff to industry? I mean, this idea of when are they ready to be handed off to industry? When can they be the students be functional on the job, and so that's an issue that it's kind of a fuzzy a fuzzy criteria that we're trying.
So if you could pick, so HungryAcademy, they knew where the people were going. They just had to make it through the program. Right. For you, for the DaVinci Coders and CodeAcademy, what could industry do better to help facilitate that handoffs?
Yeah, I mean, if we had some sort of a criteria for what would it take for the student to be ready for this apprenticeship program or entry-level position, if we kind of knew what those entry-level criteria was, that might be helpful. I'm not sure that the industry knows yet what that is. So.
I mean, one of kind of my side projects, working with Dave Woodall here in the front row, who just graduated from CodeAcademy, is trying to figure that out. So what does it look like? You know, Dave has postulated this idea of where does that junior developer begin? Yeah. You know, where do you need to be? Where's the roadmap for that? And I'm not sure we know, because I've been doing this for 15 years. I've been writing software for 15 years. I don't know what that looks like.
So just as an example, in the world of colleges, there was an article that came out just a couple days ago that said that the average graduate of South Dakota School of Mines in Rapid City makes more money than the average graduate from Harvard University. From South Dakota School of Mines, they make $56,000 on average, and Harvard $54,000. So even the big colleges haven't figured out this whole idea of the handoff. And in fact, I think they know far less about it than probably the people in this room here. But
and is that because they're graduating students into industries that are higher paying? Like, I graduated from South Dakota State, I've probably got like a mining degree or a natural resources degree would be my guess.
Yeah, in the world of mining, I think they align themselves really closely with the world of mining. Most colleges don't align themselves that closely with the industries they're working with, and so we want to create as strong a relationships as we can with all of the companies that would be employing the people that are coming out of DaVinci Coders. So we've been attending networking events. We've been trying to make our way around the Ruby on Rails community.
So all you people looking for developers, talk to Tom. So yeah, seriously, they need to tell you what you need of graduates, because you're not going to figure it out, because you don't do software development. Well, you did in Pascal, but which is good. Like, I'm sure Pascal programs are making a pretty penny these days, because I'm sure there's still some Pascal programs in production.
Those two guys that are out there.
Yeah, and them and the COBOL guys are making the fat cash. So Matt, what was the acceptance criteria for HungryAcademy graduates?
Yeah, well, actually,
or success criteria.
Sure, the success criteria, and I mean, it's pretty simple. The success criteria was, do they get a full-time job converting on to, joining an engineering team, a software engineering team? And that was my personal success criteria, and that was that was the point of the program.
So Living Social was in charge of interviewing these people, and they sat with guys at Living Social and gals at Living Social, like, hey, do you want this person on your team type deal?
Yeah, absolutely. When the program was coming to a close, in the last week or two, anyone that was in the program went through an actual interview process with the engineering team, which was almost a point of friction, because in reality they'd gone through a very rigorous interview process up to that point, and they did get to, you're probably familiar, but Living Social has a multifaceted interview process. So
I made it through, so it's really not that hard.
But there's at least multiple phases. Yeah, no, if you're joining the engineering team, you have to go through a Living Social cultural interview. You have to go through an engineering team cultural interview and an engineering technical interview. And the HungryAcademy grads were able to skip the sort of Living Social culture part, but they couldn't skip the engineering culture because they had to mesh well with the team they were looking at, and they couldn't skip the technical part because they had to produce code. So it was really the evaluation criterion was of any other hiring process of someone, do I want to bring this person onto my team because I think they're going to produce value?
Interesting. So that's good. So there was it was like anybody walking off the street. So they didn't know if they had a, they knew they didn't have a BS in software engineering or computer science, but they went through the same process as someone who did or might have.
Yeah, with, of course, the advantage that they had been steeped in living social culture for 5 months. They had made relationships with people on the teams. It wasn't as if they were coming in cold, obviously. But that didn't necessarily, that wasn't foregone, right? Yeah. There was no guarantee entering the program that they were going to join the software development teams.
So Elaine, as a participant in this program, you pretty much gave up everything. You're like, I'm done with advertising. I want to be a software developer. I'm going to go do this. I'll let you explain how you paid for it if you want to do that. Like, that's pretty inspiring. Like, it wasn't like this part-time thing you did. Like, you pushed, like as Angela said, she pushed all in for this.
Yeah, actually, Angela's presentation really spoke to me because it was about doing it from a place of love and not fear. And when she talked about like going in the bathroom and crying, I was like, ooh, I do that often. Because when it's so new to you and you're an adult and you haven't been challenged like that mentally in a really long time, you have these like really frustrating tantrum 2-year-old moments where I just don't understand. And so I did completely like walk away from marketing and advertising. I took the class full time. I am paying it with credit, which everyone is like.
The American way.
The American way. I know. I haven't been in debt in a long time, and now I am. But everyone said it's an investment, it's an investment, it's an investment. And I do believe it's an investment, but I am a little concerned about the industry, and I actually do appreciate being a part of this panel because, the industry is saying we have all these jobs, we have all these jobs, we have all these jobs. I believe that you all have jobs for senior software developers. I think you all have jobs for people with 3 to 5 years experience who need no hand-holding. I don't think you have jobs for anyone that needs help.
Oh, she just called y'all out.
And so I really do want to discuss that at further length, and anyone can find me afterwards and berate me.
Pivotal.
But yeah, that's my big question for the industry is, are there jobs or are there programs, are there apprenticeship programs across the board? Because I wonder as an industry how you're going to thrive and get all of those software developers if you don't have the programs to grow them yourselves. Because I really do believe that everyone who's already decided to do it themselves in high school and college and ditch their classes and read their C+ book, they've done it. They're in the room. You have to teach everyone else how to do it. Okay.
Nice. So I've been mulling over a question. So we have 11 weeks. Elaine was actually I was her mentor for the DaVinci Coders program. Is there a concern at some point that we're going to graduate all of these people out of these programs who don't have database design skills and data structure skills and all of this stuff, and they're going to literally overwhelm the rest of us? So at some point, somebody like myself is going to have to look at code. I'm sure people that are reviewing your code, Jim, were like, okay, there was one of you. If they had, right, they had 5 of them. What does that look like? Is this sustainable, or as Elaine said, does the industry need to get involved to say, okay, I'm going to teach you how to ride a bike. I'm going to teach you how to ride with the training wheels, and I'm going to take the training wheels off, and then I'm going to mold you in my kind of image or how I want you to write software.
Yeah, well, I would kind of argue that you already do hire those kind of people. I call it the anti-apprenticeship. It's super junior level. My friend Ryan, I don't know if he's here today, has started at the same level I did and started at the same time I did, but has been working in the startup scene here in Boulder, and has just been literally just spending all his time banging his head against the wall with each mission that the team gives him, and he plows through it and he gets it done. He gets it done in 80 hours where it would take a normal developer maybe 30, 20 hours to do it, but he gets it done. And I would argue that there's a lot of, if you're not doing that, then you're most likely poaching senior developers from other companies.
Yeah, I mean, we're all just swapping hats at this point.
Yeah,
I mean, I went from Pivotal to Living Social and back to Pivotal. I mean, that's all we're doing at this point.
It's kind of a show game, and it's kind of funny. Like they won't call his job an apprenticeship. Maybe it's for the funders, maybe it's for their peace of mind, but
he's not getting any support either. He's literally just like sat in front of a computer.
He is, though. Okay. He is. I mean, he does spend a lot more time banging his head against the wall than like me, because I had that support group built in, and they knew what they were getting into when they took on an apprentice. But he has 2 awesome senior devs that help him all the time, and I also would argue that you learn a lot when you teach somebody what you know. You might not even know all what you know until you teach somebody like me.
I think Angela touched on that in her talk too, where it was they teach you how to listen better and have compassion and things like that.
Yeah, sit on your hands. That's perfect. I mean, and I'm talking teaching as in pairing. Like most of my learning has happened in a pairing environment.
So it's not like here's a task, go off in the corner for a while. I'll check in on you every couple of hours.
Unless it's been my breakable toy, my thesis that I've been doing on the side. But that's kind of the thing that I bring my knowledge to, and I can develop on my own.
That you've gotten from a pairing experience.
Yeah, but I've been pairing on Groupon projects with my team members. In the very beginning, I was literally just sitting there watching them. Couldn't believe I was actually getting to do that, like actually getting to sit next to this guy that had been doing it for 10 years, and he was telling me every question I asked, he's like, yeah, this is this. And then he would stop for a second, and it's like, wow, I haven't had to explain Bash in forever, so yeah.
So you didn't mind just sitting there, like holding onto the seat, drinking from the fire hose, and just like holding on as the roller coaster went through? It was all fire hose
for the first 2 months, I would say. And then there was a paradigm shift, and I started being able to ask questions, the right questions. And then it was just spinning up. And the last 2 months of my apprenticeship, I have arguably made tons of progress compared to my first 4 months, I would say.
Cool.
Visible.
Yeah,
progress.
So you probably have coded production at Groupon now, doing something for the company.
I've made a commit to the Groupon database.
Yeah. So
I didn't, master Gehard anything.
No git reset dash
apparently
hard.
That's a no-no, but yeah.
Cool. Do we have any questions from the audience?
So for the CodeAcademy, do you have like corporate sponsorship or scholarships so people don't have to go to debt?
So with DaVinci Coders, we have we had some scholarship money this time around. We're going to work on more of that in the future. It would be it'd be nice if they could get the normal student loans. I mean, we're not set up to. We don't qualify for those yet. So, I mean, this is pretty early stage stuff. We're a very small class size, so we can take up to 16 students. The first time around, we had 14 students and 2 dropped out because it was pretty hard. And so the next set of classes will start on this coming Monday. And so we still have a couple seats left if anybody's still interested, but it's really last minute. But this is not for everybody. I mean, this is something where you make a real commitment to. And we would welcome any corporations or any groups that would like to underwrite the cost of a student coming through, or if you have somebody that you're thinking of employing and you'd like to send them through this training as part of their pre-employment package, we'd certainly love to work with you on that.
It could be an interesting way to get like skin in the game from those companies. So you're going to send somebody through this program. Now you're got skin in the game to make sure that person actually performs for your company.
But we're very determined. I mean, we're very determined to make this a very successful program. We want to, in a couple of years, come out and say that every graduate of DaVinci Coders is making more than a graduate from Harvard. So we
And,
think that
and that's in Louisville, so this is
Yeah.
Boulder local. So this is like, you can say like, hey, Boulder is building these people. Well, Louisville is, but it's still Boulder anyway. It's Boulder County. Sure.
So the 11-week program is $6,000, and that makes them as part of the DaVinci Institute community. So they get 24/7 access to the facilities. We have co-working facilities there, and come to all of our events for free. And we send out a weekly newsletter of all the other events happening in the area. We assign mentors. We have TAs in the classroom. We try to go the extra mile.
And they have a vault that you can actually sit in. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. It's a former bank building, so it does have a vault, yes.
So, having recently graduated from college, science graduate, I was lucky to have scored an internship at a startup that basically teaches Ruby. And so what do you think about the importance of, do you think it's important to sort of tap into universities who aren't teaching Ruby, who aren't teaching any sort of modern technology, which I think is the case with a lot of science programs now. You know, there are all these smart people who are graduating from college who can't work in any of, you know, the startups because they don't have that Ruby experience.
I think.
Yeah, so I think it's it's not even unspoken, it's actually quite frequently spoken of truth in our industry that largely college computer science programs do not graduate persons ready to be practicing software developers, right? I do have a undergrad degree in computer science engineering, for what that was worth. Which I actually think is worth a lot. Now, I champion and am a big fan of alternative education initiatives and all the stuff that's happening right now. I think, you know, it's identifying a real need. At the same time, computer science programs, certainly not traditionally, were not set up to graduate practicing software developers. They're graduating computer scientists, right? I think it's very important, though, to try to tap into the persons who are going through those programs, who have graduated from them, actually type in prior to graduation, to try to help educate them, and just that there are more topics and there's more information, there's more practical skills out there that's important to gather. When I worked for EdgeCase, which is in Columbus, Ohio, which is where the Ohio State University is, and that's where I went, we were fortunate enough to make a relationship with someone that was a coordinator for what they called a scholars program, which was this sort of non-accredited program, but offering alternative classes. And one of those was they wanted to do web development with Ruby and Rails. So I was fortunate to get to teach that for a few quarters, and that's part of how I found my way here. And it was incredibly fulfilling, but also eye-opening, because you would talk to people like, okay, let's talk about, this is how, I'm talking about Ruby and Rails, I'm talking about active record, and saying, and this is going to execute in the context of a transaction. And you get the blank look, and you go, oh, right, database transactions. So, you have to take that step back.
But you were lucky enough to have just somehow formed that relationship. It wasn't like they reached out to EdgeCase.
They did not. Well, actually, I have to say, to their credit, that it was the case of one person who was knowledgeable and in a position to reach out. And he did reach out to Joe O'Brien, who was owner of EdgeCase. And they did establish that, but it's still kind of a rogue operation.
Right, it's kind of, not accredited.
And that's when I feel like if I hadn't, someone put the bug in my ear at some point while I was in school that you need to look at these other things that are more practical. You're not really going to come out prepared for work, and I wouldn't have had a job when I graduated. So it's super important to do this, but having said all of that, I don't want to sit here and give the impression that there's no value in traditional computer science programs. There is. It's fundamental, it's theoretical, but it tends not to be the day-to-day stuff.
So we have a couple more minutes. Did anybody want to say anything else? Any more questions from the audience? Oh, wow. Jerry.
And
Did everybody get that from her? So Jerry, you did development back in the day. Remind me how long ago? You had 20 years of experience doing this. Took some time off to raise some kids, and then like, oh, the kids are grown, and I want to get back into this. And she couldn't, like, JavaScript. Like, what is JavaScript? Probably didn't exist when you, or was. Okay, sorry. But yeah, like JavaScript, we've come like long ago from the days of like alert foo to like jQuery and MVC plugins. So you could add a lot to a team as a seasoned developer, just not in the technologies. So it's like, how can we retool people, like, you know, like Tom went through, where he was an engineer, they retooled him, they taught him to treat Pascal. Because engineers, we all think the same. I have a bachelor's in chemical engineering. Like, I was analyzing problems. That's, you know, what we do as software engineers or computer programmers. So yeah, so that's an interesting point. So we have a whole nother segment of people that just may need to be brought up to speed on the latest technologies, because I think there's all kinds of new technologies coming out. So that's interesting too.
Can I make real quick
Sure.
to Bogart the mic? Sorry, but I think that's actually a great analog to the other question there, and the discussion. It's not about like you look at a job listing. It's a laundry list of this many years in this technology. You check down the line, but we also kind of know that's largely an artifact of organizational scale, and the fact that people making hiring decisions, people making job postings aren't persons with expertise in the area in which people are actually working. And that's the importance of events like this, of networking, of making relationships, of reaching out to university students before they graduate, is you find the people with the drive and the passion and the personality to fit into your team, right? It's like team cultural fit is so important, even perhaps more important than actual, like, certainly than incoming technical skill. So, but probably most people in this room know that, and we just need to keep communicating it and reaching out proactively to folks who want to step into the roles, be they still in a school program, be they coming back in, need some retooling.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. I'm sure there's many more discussions to be had, not only with these folks, but among the crowd. So I want to thank you all for taking time out and sharing your experiences with us. I would like to do, I would like to do one more thing before we wrap up today. So we had 16 women come through our Opportunity Scholarship program, so I want all of them to stand up if you're still in the room. And just take a look around. So these are the people that reached out to us and said, hey, I want to be a technologist, I just can't figure this out. I need some help with this. And are here today doing it. Tony, you're getting like PhD in something, aren't you? In what? In geography, but she wants to write Ruby code. So if I get all the Sherpas to stand up, so as part of the program, they were all paired with a person plugged into the community. So I want to thank all those people for taking time. They were not compensated in any way to do this, so thank you for doing that.